All right, good morning, everybody. It's September 27th. It's a Tuesday, and it's 10 a.m., which means this is City Utilities Committee. I'm Howard Shook. We have Ms. Bakhtiari to my right, Mr. Hillis to my left, Mr. Wine to the far left. So 4 of us constitute a quorum. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Regarding the agenda, we're not changing the agenda, really, are we? Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And it's been adopted. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, which you have carefully reviewed. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
We're being joined by Ms. Boone and Mr. Lewis.
Please vote.
Vote on approval of the
Councilmember
minutes.
Wine. The vote is closed.
All right, minutes have been adopted unanimously. That takes us to public comment. Brother Muhammad, you're up. Except he's not here.
He's out in the hallway.
Okay, well, let's go to Peggy Whitlow Ratcliffe. Good to see you again.
Good morning, council members.
Morning.
Before you have a flyer for the Do You Recycle Challenge. Live Thrive has extended this challenge through December of this year. We'd really love some participants. We have $20,000 left in the pocket for infrastructure improvements for properties for multifamily homes. A lot of the reasons these people don't have recycling is because they don't have the infrastructure. So while this money's available that came from the Recycling Partnership, we would really love your input, your support on this to get some property managers to call us. We'll come out and do some education for them and then help them improve the infrastructure. This does help them comply with the City of Atlanta ordinance for the recycling. So whatever we can do to help with this, just all the information is on the flyer. So please reach out and we'll be glad to go out and see what we can do. Any questions?
Just a statement. Thank you for all you've done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Brother Muhammad.
I am that I am, King of Kings, Nikas, committed, indigenous, antiquity, spiritual being. I command the ancestors to teach my soul spiritual energy every day. And I'm not a believer in a Roman Catholic Church, religion, Christianity. In your Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, there's not one person, not one human person born from a woman womb canal. I come here and talk about ordinance, Department of Watershed Management. You got 6 agreements or more for architectural work and other work available to that department, about $8 million. Then I realized that the Beltline, millions of dollars being appropriated by the city to do more work. Also remember, there was a gentleman here today that spoke in the full council about a fire department. Gonna have millions of dollars that's supposed to be used to build that new fire department. But he was questioning the $10 million for art. I question that too. I'm wasteful for spending. I have concern for people living on the street. Now, you're getting cold now, and the people that live on the street, the majority of people that look like myself. But I'm calling on you Caucasians. Let's have the heart that we have for the will of the people in Ukraine. It's sad to see how the people to be killed by Russia day in and day out, or anywhere. But what about here in Atlanta? Are we able to recognize what we say in this city? We say in this city of Atlanta, let's make sure Atlanta is a place everyone can call their home. Now, I got people that look like me built this country, their ancestors. And we surely should have the support of you council people that want to recognize these people shouldn't have to suffer like they are, Mr. Shook, Mr. Hillis, Mr. Warren, but y'all have other priorities. But you had a professor over at Georgia State Who talked about ever since Miss Shirley Franklin? The league problem we have in Atlanta, the affordable housing started then. And we got a problem now called Miss Shirley Franklin instituted a program called ACAI. And this gentleman said, Professor, cities of Atlanta need to take the lead to create change both at the city level and at the state level for housing. Now, here you got a professor, has tenure, but yet he want to recognize that in Atlanta, we have housing not for the poor, not for the people that look like Brother Muhammad and his ancestors. And what about you, member of council? Are you really going to stand up and do something about this? Because it's time now. I didn't greet you as I come. Mayor, Metro, Hotel, Assalamu alaikum. Ashe, Ashe. So it is.
Thank you. Commissioner Browning, you ready for the quarterly report?
Mr. Chair, we do have an appointee present.
Is the appointee here?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, let's take this first, if you don't mind.
Item number 10, a communication from council members Howard Shook, District 7, Mary Norwood, District 8, and Matt Westmoreland, Post 2 at large, reappointing Mr. Earl Young to serve as a member of the Water and Sewer Appeals Board. This appointment is for a term of 3 years to begin retroactively on October 1st, 2021 and expire September 30th, 2024.
Mr. Young, good morning.
Thank you very much for having me here this morning. I represent District 8, District 7, Mr. Shook, and I love to volunteer for the city in my semi-retirement. I serve on the board of Chastain Park and Servicey, which I love. For 40 years I've lived there, but I've just enjoyed being part of the Water and Sewer Appeals Board, and I look forward to serving another term. And just a shout out to the team for the Water and Sewer people that handle the meetings, organize the meetings. They do a great job. And it's just a great team that we have over there, and I enjoy coming down and just thank for the opportunity to come back again.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for your continued willingness to serve in that important role. I will make a motion to approve. Second by Mr. Wan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right. Excellent. Thank you again. All right, Commissioner, take it away. Watershed Management's quarterly report.
Hey, good morning, Chairman Shook and City Utility Committee members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to update you on Department of Watershed Management's progress during the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2022 for a period of April through June of 2022. Advance to slide 3. This illustrates DWM's department organizational chart. Yeah, it's not working.
And we've been joined by Jason Winston.
Advancing to slide 4, this highlights the department's progress by the numbers relating our core services and functions for the reporting period. Advancing to slide 5, this provides an update regarding DWM's pandemic response. We've continued to navigate the pandemic environment, ensuring that we have adequate coverage for all of our shifts across our operations. During the fourth quarter, non-mission critical employees continued to report on a hybrid schedule, with mission critical employees reporting daily. DWM experienced a total of 37 COVID infections, with all fully recovered for the period. 69% of our workforce has received at least one COVID-19 vaccination shot. And we continue to ensure that our frontline workers have the proper PPEs to perform essential functions in a safe and protective manner. We're continuing daily touch point cleanings and schedule deep cleanings at all DWM facilities within a 24-hour period upon notification of a positive case. Next, I'll cover the administrative and financial highlights. Slide 7 provides an update regarding our personnel status. For the reporting period, DWM's authorized positions for a total of 1,633 positions, with 1,277 filled and 356 vacancies. Our percentage filled is roughly 79%, with a vacancy rate of 21%. Similar to other water utilities and other sister departments, we are experiencing the effects of the current competitive jobs market. As such, we're continuing our headcount management efforts to closely manage and monitor our hiring approvals and vacancies. We're continuing to focus efforts to fill mission-critical positions with our core operations offices and are continuing to recruit and maintain talent, and particularly those positions requiring licenses and certifications. Department of Human Resources is continuing to assist the department with hosting hiring blitzes for our operational sectors, positions via career fairs and related recruitment events. We also implemented our temporary salary adjustment for frontline workers, and we will await the results of the citywide pay and class study. Advancing to slides, through 8 through 10, these provide a snapshot of our fourth quarter fiscal year 22 financials. We finished the fiscal year within budget relating O&M expenditures, spending 99.2% of our personnel budget and 74.2% of non-personnel budget allocations. As of June, our fiscal year actual revenues finished higher than projected, and expenses were well within budget. Slide 10 provides a graphic that illustrates fiscal year 21 actuals in comparison to fiscal year 22 projections, and actuals and shows a steady trend upward. Slide 11 provides a summary of our municipal option sales tax revenues through June. Most revenues also finished higher than projections and continues to be a positive for the department. Slide 12 provides an update regarding our collections efforts for the reporting period. We are continuing to focus on all our 3 account types, commercial, residential, and multifamily. During quarter 4, we completed planning efforts for our float initiative, which commenced in July as a proactive means to connect with customers in the community to address any and all questions and concerns relating to outstanding water balances and billings. The initiative will be in effect for a 12-week period running from July through October. We have received extremely positive feedback from customers, and we're grateful for the administration, council, and overall community's continued support as we work to address the large volume of accounts with arrears. Our communications teams also developed a video that is available for view on our LinkedIn page, Channel 26, and other media pages. Advancing to slide 13, provides a summary of float participants by council district to date. At present, the total participants is 1,150. Advancing to slide 14, this illustrates the progress to reduce the outstanding accounts receivables across all account types since January. So for all account types, we're down from 129 to 121. And it gives a summary or an illustration of what the current balances are for single-family, commercial, and multifamily. Advancing to slide 15 provides next steps concerning collections efforts that will include, we will continue to address site property issues that are DWM responsibility. We'll maximize the use of a low-income housing water assistance program and available funding to assist customers in need. We'll continue to identify and address properties that are vacant with consumption. We will look to write off aged accounts that are beyond our legal ability to collect. And based on site visits, we will update customer information to ensure that we have current account information. And due to the success of the float program, we look to extend the program through January 1st, with shutoffs to commence afterwards. The next several slides provide an update regarding DWM's Care and Conserve program, and specifically our bill payment, LEWOP, and plumbing assistance support services that are provided to customers. The program is charged with assisting single-family, low to moderate income residential customers who are experiencing financial hardships with outstanding water bills and plumbing repairs. We recognize that many customers have expressed a need for assistance, and we want to ensure that we identify available resources and funding to support. For the reporting period, DWM has assisted a total of 238 customers and 703 customers for the fiscal year 2022. Use of the low-income water assistance program got off to an initial slow start in fall of last year, but the customer interest has increased since then. As of August of this year, federal and state will fund a second year of LEWOP program. Similarly, Care and Conserve program has expanded the plumbing repairs grant program. Thank you for the committee's support for the expansion. This will now include restoration support for low-income customers impacted by sewer backups. Additionally, the program, in conjunction with the Nehemiah project, is offering free leak detection services and is complementary to the float program for a limited period. Next, I'll cover our operational highlights. Advancing to slide 21, this provides a summary of activities relating to our site development division. During this period, 996 permits were issued, which are up from the 841 for the third quarter. The percent increase and decrease in plan reviews is also noted for the current reporting period in comparison to 2021. We also managed to fill one vacant position and are working with HR to fill 2 remaining vacancies within the site development group. Advancing to slides 22 and 23, these provide a summary of our environmental and construction enforcement activities for the reporting period. The team completed a total of 3,786 inspections. Roughly 88% of the sites were found to be in compliance, with 12% were found to be in non-compliance. We issued 115 stop work orders, 8 citations, 7 court sessions were attended, and 1,756 fines were levied. Advancing to slide 24, this provides an update on DWM's internal metrics. We're seeing an uptick in the estimated reads, and those will be addressed by replacement of aged devices. Meanwhile, we're continuing to see a downward trend in both sewer spills and continued 100% compliance at our drinking water plants. Slide 25 provides an overview of the Office of Watershed Protection's SLA, which average for the quarter was 93.5, which is up from last quarter's 91.5. Notable are the continued progress made regarding our inspections activities. Slide 26 provides an update on our Office of Customer Care and Billing Services, which continues to have 100% SLA for the period. Slide 27 provides an update on Office of Linear Infrastructure Operations SLA for the period, which was 97.7%, which is up from last quarter's 90.4%. Notables are improvements regarding water main break repairs and valve leak repairs. We're continuing to make the necessary adjustments to teams that support hydrant tasks. And recent hiring blitzes are helping to fill critical vacancies and add needed additional resources. Advancing to slide 28, this provides an update on the OLEO service requests. 54% of service requests were related to sewer collections division, and 46% were related to the water distribution division. Next, I'll provide an update on our compliance. If you advance to slide 30, happy to report that we continue to have 0 NPDES violations for the period across our wastewater facilities. As you know, compliance is a top priority for the department, and the team is doing a tremendous job keeping us in compliance with permit requirements. Next, I'll cover our capital improvements program. So if you advance to slide 32, our current 5-year CIP is $0.83 billion and is comprised of 94 active projects. And we're continuing to balance capital investments across our operations to ensure completing upgrades to our most critical assets and to ensure long-term serviceability. The next slide, 33, provides an update on the 6 AE professional services contracts. To date, we've issued 42 task orders, equating to roughly $17 million. On today's agenda, Deputy Commissioner Martin will be requesting approval for a recharge for the fund account. Thus far, the teams are performing satisfactorily. We're continuing to closely monitor the balance of assignments, expenditures, ensure that work aligns with current CIP priorities and operational needs. Similarly, we're closely monitoring performance and completed our semi-annual check-ins with each of the teams in May. And we're planning the second semi-annual meetings for the teams before the close of the year. Advancing to slides 34 through 36, this just highlights a few notable CIP projects that are either currently underway or on the immediate horizon. We have our North Fork Storage Tank and Pump Station, and that's on today's agenda for approval. We have our Upper Proctor Creek Capacity Relief Projects phases B and C, and we have our Entrenchment Creek Water Reclamation Center decommissioning and South River WRC clarifiers replacement. In closing, I want to recognize the valued men and women of the Department of Watershed Management for their continued hard work and support in providing water service to the customers of the city. Subject to your questions, this concludes the quarterly update. Thank you for your time and attention this morning.
Comments or questions?
Yes, Commissioner, I would like to commend your staff that were present at the C.T. Martin Recreation Center on both occasions. They were extremely courteous, got good results, especially for our seniors and our vulnerable citizens that live in some of the areas in the Boulder Park corridor. They knew your staff by name, and I just want to commend you all for that. And if you could just give me a little synopsis of the Float Initiative and what you all have accomplished thus far. Thank you.
Will do. At this time, yeah. I'll defer to Deputy Commissioner Jonathan Williams.
Jonathan Williams, Office of Watershed. Since we started the Float Initiative in July, there's lots of communication that goes to the press that names different dollars, but we're at the point where we actually monitor activity on a daily basis. Today, we've come down on our non-disputed items from 130 to 121.5 as of today. The disputed items, typically, we don't get more than 10 or 15%. They're in litigation, and so we try to maximize that, but it is what it is. We've had great response from the folks at every location that we went out to, and it's been a great way to bond with customers, let them know we're trying to provide every advantage to them based on available funds to make their account more affordable where possible. We've also addressed about 1,000 accounts as it relates to cleaning up data, so we've got accuracy. We find in a lot of instances that potentially things we could have done better in the beginning of the process in terms of setting up the meters, in terms of having accuracy. So part of this is going through and actually doing the right thing from the customer's perspective and from our perspective. And we've enjoyed it very much. We're excited about the process of extending the date to January and hope we continue to see a lot of involvement.
So this will be extended until January?
Yes,
That is really good news. Thank you so much.
thank you all.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and just piggyback on that. Looks like District 6 has a little bit of catching up to do to my colleagues, so we'll try and help get the word out in terms of helping promote float. I did want to ask, in the last cycle, I believe we authorized some funding for on page 12, the repair assistance, adjustments, and payment plans. And if I recall correctly, we essentially just engaged a kind of a community organization that will manage that for us and really help implement the program. My follow-up question is really just around reporting. Will we get feedback from them in terms of applicants or projects that have been approved, the types of requests? The reason why I ask is I think we are very interested in following that in case we need to, if there's a lot of appetite or need for it, if we need to consider more funding. And secondly, it's also a good data point for us. If there are trends or other systemic problems out there that we should be aware of, that's one good data entry point for us. So do you know what the feedback loop will be for that particular program?
So when we issue a work authorization to the company, they will go to the property and do an initial assessment. And at that point, they'll determine what the scope of work is going to be for remediation or restoration for the property. What I can do is provide, as a feedback loop, provide an update, a continuous update to you as the committee on the progress that we're making to address various properties.
I would say if there's a quarterly report that we could get from that entity,
We can.
I think that would be really helpful. Because again, if the money that we've allocated, I think it was $300,000,
Yes.
gets used up very quickly, then I'd love for us to be able to have the conversation about replenishing it, or at least looking and seeing what the typical asks have been, and what, again, if there's any indication of another system-wide problem that we should discuss.
Absolutely. I can plan to track that at a granular level and be able to provide an update to you on a quarterly basis.
Thanks, Commissioner. On page 17 on the Care and Conserve program, I was a little surprised at the number that have been denied for assistance. I'm kind of curious if there is anything in terms of broad stroke reasons why, or common reasons why they're denied. Is it just they're not eligible, or was there something that we can help do a better job of educating the public in terms of when they apply for these?
I think some of it may be ineligibility, but I'll defer to D.C. Williams for any specifics.
Many times we found that folks don't provide the correct information. They don't fill out the forms correctly. And we go back to them and say, please do this. And so if you could encourage those folks who have an interest to just complete the forms, it would add a lot.
Okay, good. So they do get a second chance to correct any.
Absolutely. And to your earlier question, we actually have the detail on everything we expend associated with the program, so we'll be happy to provide that.
Great, thank you. And then finally, on page 23, this is the environmental construction enforcement. I guess I was also a little surprised to see while there are that many that are non-compliant, that the number of citations issued is fairly low. And I don't know if there's a specific reason for that, but to me, if to the extent if there isn't a stick with the policy, then is the actual policy effective?
Well, I think, we have quite a bit of construction that's occurring with the Metro Atlanta, and it's a very diligent group that does the inspections. They're equally diligent about doing re-inspections and really working with the property owners to get their affairs in order and get into compliance. So I think we probably see more success in working closely with the owners and developers to address those deficiencies within the re-inspections.
Okay.
And I think only the egregious ones get to a point where we have to cite or levy a fine.
Okay, so if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, it's that the non-compliance, if there was yet another column that said brought into compliance, we'd see a big bulk of those.
I think we would.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Mr. Chair, I have other questions about the North Fork tank, but I'll save those for when that legislation comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Browning, for the presentation. Staying on those previous subjects, float, glad to see District 9 is the third highest per district in getting signups for that. Moving the shutoffs up to January 1st, is there any difference in kind of the, I guess, degree of, how strict we are or shutoff dates between single family, multifamily, and commercial? But I imagine there's different approaches we need to take with each one of those.
There is. So of course, we've resumed shutoffs for commercial over a year ago, and those are progressing as needed. With regard to single family, those wouldn't initiate until January 2nd, following completion of float, and so that's going to be a hard date at this point. Again, the reason for the extension is because we're getting so much success from the program. We feel that additional time would be valuable to allow more customers to get their accounts and their affairs in order and compliant. It does take a different approach with regard to multifamily because those are apartment complexes, and the impacts for a water shutoff is going to affect several families. So we have to deal, work closely with other community agencies and just make sure that we work with the owners or the management companies as much as possible to try to get them compliant or on a payment plan before it gets to a point where we're having to shut off water and potentially displace families.
So the end game for commercial, or not commercial, multifamily, would that involve taking those apartment owners to court potentially and getting settlement, or what is the hopeful end game there, other than, if they just come up and...
Hopefully the end result, the end game is for them to get on a payment plan to get the accounts and into compliance. But we do recognize some challenges with some of the multifamily accounts that we're dealing with. And there's a variety of issues that some of them are encountering, such as bankruptcy and compliance with those requirements. And then in addition to that, compliance with working to get the water accounts into good standing. And so, we'll take some necessary steps, very methodical, again, before we look to shut off for multifamily. Because again, if you're shutting off water, that really does mean that there's going to be displacement of families. And so we have to be very careful about that.
Right. And then speaking of the end game, when we get to the end of float and going to potentially shut off accounts, whatever that balance is left, is Watershed just going to write that off, or is there still some COVID relief funds from the various sources still available to reimburse us? And then after that, are we going to get much more strict about, because as I mentioned a few committee meetings ago, certainly COVID aggravated this, but this is not something new.
I think the bulk of the accounts are ones, and I think I spoke about in the presentation, the ones that are really aged. And so we doubt that they're collectible. So between now and the end of the year, we're going to be sanitizing that list, and we'll be bringing that forth for consideration for write-offs. So we're going to spend this time to really sanitize that list and determine which accounts are we deem to be beyond their collectible age, and but at the same time working to get as many of those active accounts that are within a collectible stance to get on a payment plan or pay before we initiate shutoffs.
And then moving on to Councilmember One's second subject, which I'm very familiar with, is the construction enforcement. I understand the need to work with developers. Maybe 3 strikes you're out, but I've got construction sites in my district that between myself and neighbors in that neighborhood, you all have been out 10 plus times. There's got to be a stop somewhere. This reminds me of, I'm very involved in code enforcement, being the chair of public safety for multiple years, and even before then. They got to the point where they're basically just serving as the notification service for people to come, mow their yard, and I feel that that's what the Watershed is doing. Like, you can tell if your silt fence is down or your construction entrance is inadequate. Like, we don't need to be expending our resources time and time and time again just to play babysitter. I mean, there's got to be a hard stop at some point. And I don't know if it's the fourth time out or the fifth time or what, but we just got to get more strict with the bad actors, in my opinion.
Understood. And I'll speak with the team about more aggressive approach to try to remedy those situations sooner than later so that the issues don't just kind of fester and linger on and on, to your point.
And then on site development, I believe you noted there were 2 vacant reviewer positions that have been vacant for some time. Are those posted?
They are posted. And we're actively accepting applications and looking to interview as soon as possible.
On the, actually, I'll save that for when it comes up, the legislation comes up. Can we please get, I noticed looking at the most update, we all have quite a few projects out in our council districts. If we could get an update by council district as to where those projects are. Let's see, we're 27% over on projected collections, but still needing to see some progress on particular projects. And then lastly, just again, want to compliment your team for all you all do and your responsiveness, and also for providing your metrics, because you're one of the few departments that not only consistently provides this, but other than a few, everything is green or is on the upswing. So bravo to DWM for that.
Thank you for that. Councilman Hillis, and I will provide an update on our MOST program next quarter.
All right, thank you.
Ms. McIntyre.
If you can't tell, Councilmember Hillis is very excited. You can tell by the tone of his voice. But I wanted to, one, say, obviously, thank you for all that you do. I don't think you sleep. But whether it's, 9 o'clock in the morning at 3 a.m., you respond to my emails within 10 minutes. So thank you for that. I just had a couple of questions. Just on page 7, the in hold and in process, could you kind of, would you mind elaborating on that? I just wanted to better understand.
So we have some positions that are on hold, and those are primarily non-mission critical. We have that's not a priority for us right now. We're really trying to work to right size our department. And so, and those that are in process are going through the onboarding process currently, so.
Understood. And everything's been moving well with HR on that process?
Things are moving with HR. We work very closely with them.
Okay.
Obviously, we're trying to work to see how we can expedite onboarding because that takes some time. But overall, a very positive working relationship with HR. We've got very, very committed HR managers and specialists that are within our department that support.
I'm glad to hear that. And then looking at float, at least I'm ahead of Councilmember Juan, but I still have some catching up to do. So with float, clearly, we need to do, but I need to do a better job. So question being, would there be an opportunity to do a partnership with Watershed with some of the towers or with some of our seniors in the district to try
Absolutely.
to do workshops and trying to get the word out?
To extend it, for the balance this year. I encourage you, please reach out if you feel like there's different areas that'll be advantageous for us to hold the sessions. Certainly welcome your feedback.
And is Watershed still planning on doing some of the the digital videos, informing people on different aspects of Watershed? I know that we were discussing that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Working with our communications team on that.
Do we have an estimated time of when those will launch?
I think we should have probably a demo by the end of October, probably early November.
Okay. Please let me know how we can help with pushing those out.
Absolutely.
Because obviously in my district, it's digital heavy, so anything I can do. And then on page 17, kind of piggybacking on what Councilmember Juan was asking about with conserve and carry, were those I know that we said that the people can come back after denied, and that's great. I'm curious as if the denials or the approved of these numbers were before the expansion or post?
They were before the expansion.
Okay. And I just also want to say that I know how hard you and your team worked on expanding Conserve and Carry, and I was really honored to get to work with you on that. And thank you for everything y'all have done to get in touch with the folks who really need that help and getting the assessments done and pushing those through. So thanks to you all, a lot of people will be able to stay in their homes.
Okay, thank you.
And then page 27, I just had a quick question on the metrics, which they all look fantastic. I was just curious about why the broken sewer line repair had dropped just a small percentage from May to June.
It may have been impacts due to, COVID or scheduled leave. We certainly had some departures from the team.
Okay.
But again, we're working to backfill those vacancies and beef up that area. That's one of our key operational areas, sewer collection. So, we will work to rebound in the next quarter and hopefully see more positive results.
I mean, obviously, it's not bad results. I mean, it's not a bad number. I was just curious. So, it all looks great. I just have one other question. I was curious as if the department was able to do a district by district report on energy burden, because kind of on what average cost of utilities are, because one of the things that's missing from our conversations around housing and the housing crisis is the displacement caused by energy burden. So I'm wondering if there's if we can have a breakdown of numbers, because in certain districts, I know, especially where float numbers are higher, there's a higher chance of displacement in those communities. And I think the more armed we are with information, the more we can do to assist or to combat that. Because, again, energy burden is a leading cause of displacement, and I think that needs to be more readily discussed in our conversations with utilities and housing.
Absolutely.
And obviously, anything we can do, I know with the increase of flash floods as well, you're getting lots of calls about how the sewer lines are, sewers are not working, which obviously they are. It's just difficult to absorb that much. There's only so much water you can absorb in one period. So is there anything that we can do to assist with as we face increased flash floods to prevent our water systems from becoming overwhelmed?
So we're on the cusp of seeing Hurricane Ian come, and we're going to do the necessary proactive work to ensure that catch basins are clean and free of debris, and inspecting all of our hot spots, and those are the areas that are prone to flooding or pending implementation of a project. And as far as, just how we develop our projects, we are using a little bit higher safety factor. We're recognizing that climate change is real, and so how we used to design and accommodate capacity, maybe a decade ago or just 5 years ago, we're having to put an additional safety factor on our projects to make sure that we've got that still, an amount of level of service that we can provide. But there's always going to be, that storm event that we can't predict and the system just can't take. But we would do everything in our power to design projects that will address flooding and ensure the public health and safety of our customers.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Browning. I also want to just reiterate the fact that, your team has been super responsive for projects going on district-wide, especially, or citywide, and in my district specifically. So just want to thank you for that. Also want to kind of piggyback on Councilmember Hillis's request, because the data is so good. I mean, it allows us to want to dive into it a little bit more. And so looking at the active projects, definitely would like to see, which ones are going on specifically in the different districts, but also looking at the stop work order and citations issued. I'd like to also be able to look at those in my district, and I'm sure other council members would probably like the same, so that we can kind of follow those projects more closely.
Okay, absolutely. I'll propose to provide more granular data on those locations.
All right, thank you so much.
With the potential serious rain event upcoming this weekend, I'm curious as to what sort of preparations or things that y'all do in advance?
So we have an all-hands briefing this afternoon. We're watching the weather very closely. I understand that the event has made landfall, and so we're going to track it. The incoming rain, I think right now it's anticipated to come in on Friday. During this dry period, the sunshine, we're going to take advantage again of cleaning catch basins within some of our key areas that are prone to flooding, doing any necessary cleaning, and just making sure that we've got the necessary staff that are going to be on standby to support, making sure we have vectors and the resources on standby for any proactive measures that we typically employ them for when we have these types of events that are coming. So, and of course, we'll work with our sister departments, transportation and public works, to work cross-functionally across the city to support each other.
I've got a few questions. And first of all, I agree. I think this is really well formatted. So thank you for that. So page 7, HR, turnover rate, a little over 5%. That kind of feels low to me, but am I wrong, or is that a relatively normal figure?
Of course, we'd want it as low as possible. And I think, Scott, the reasons for the turnover, we've got retirement and dismissal. The bulk is resignation, and that's just, driven by the market conditions. And then we unfortunately lost some of our team members. So that's on par. I mean, we typically will look for 7%, but could be worse.
Okay. And talk a little bit more about the status of the amnesty program and what the current balance is.
So if you...
I know it's here.
You've referred... So again, we're tackling our 3 account types. And, we've got so many accounts that fall within that range. We have accounts that, again, are likely uncollectible just due to age. Right now, we're thinking that accounts that are beyond 6-7 years are probably uncollectible. This float program gives those account holders an opportunity to come in and situate their affairs. And so we're continuing to closely monitor all the accounts across those 3 account types. And so again, once we finish up the float program, we'll pretty much know which accounts we'll need to seek to write off just because of the age. And I think DC Williams, she said we've got some accounts that are 10, 15, 20 years old.
Well, related question, when are we going to see a write-off paper?
That's coming shortly. There are some that we've already started to write off, small dollar amounts that haven't risen to the level of you guys' review, but we're going to be, that'll be forthcoming very soon.
Well, no one likes them, as you know. That always triggers the media's attention as they suggest that, we're letting, X number of people get away with murder and all that. But it's a part of doing business. It needs to be done. And as you know, in the past, we had been chastised by the auditor for not being timely enough with that part of the cycle.
And to your point, anything that's over 6 or 7 years by statute is uncollectible. And so that's where we started. We've got our list together, and we'll be coming forward, I would imagine, in the next month or so with our first tranche.
Thank you. Let me follow up on something, and forgive me if you sent it, but I just hadn't seen it. But I'm looking forward to receiving kind of a 2-pager about the consent decree and why it is such a sword sort of hanging over our heads.
Yeah, I sent that over a couple weeks ago.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Chair, it was emailed to you, and it's also in your committee package today.
Thank you. In terms of sort of riding herd on, in terms of enforcement, what happens when a home is being renovated and the guy driving the backhoe doesn't feel like waiting to have the utilities marked and promptly finds the street's water main, as has happened on my street? What happens to that? Because nothing happened to him, I know that.
That should be a stop work order. You should have the utilities properly marked.
Well, I would suggest that a stop work order is a kind of an obvious and immediate first step. I would suggest that if you really want to alter people's behavior, that at the very least, they pay for all the work that your people have to go out and do.
There are instances where we have back charged developers and owners for those types of egregious activities.
Other questions, comments? All right, we good? All right, thank you, Commissioner. All right, could you please sound our single first read item?
22-0-1754, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 budget for the Water and Wastewater Renewal Extension Fund in the amount of $30,082,500.67 to transfer funds from the watershed reserves for appropriation and add funds to the listed sanitary sewer repairs projects and for other purposes.
That will return to us next time. That takes us to ordinances for second reading, the first of which is item number 2. It's been requested that we take 2 and 6 together, so there's no objection. Let's go ahead and do that. These are papers queuing up funds to be deployed for various watershed projects. First of which is 22-0-1719, ordinance by utilities authorizing the CFO to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $2.5 million to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to program management services, a team project, and for other purposes. And this is to pay the PMT, right, or what used to be called the PMT. And then 6 is 22R4354. This is a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor to execute the 4th amendment to the FC indicated program management services with Stantec SG joint venture on behalf of Watershed to extend the agreement from October 29 of this year through January 31 of 2023, and to add funds in the amount of $2.5 million. All contracted work charged to and paid from the sources listed. Ms. Martin.
Good morning, Chairperson Shook and other members of the City Utilities Committee. My name is Kathy Martin, and I am the Deputy Commissioner for Administration for the Department of Watershed Management. The 2 papers, ordinance is 22-0-1719 and resolution 22R4354. Before you include the budget amendment to approve the funding for the resolution for the extension of contract number FC 9838. This contract is for the program management services team provided by Stantec SG joint venture on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management. The PMST provides on an as-needed basis professional program management services to assist the department with the capital improvement program, addressing consent decree regulatory requirements through the Clean Water Atlanta program and other department strategic initiatives. The city continues to implement a comprehensive capital improvement program, which is a balanced program of capital expenditures to help sustain, restore, and modernize the facilities and infrastructure that support the water system, the wastewater system, the combined sewer control facilities, green infrastructure, stormwater, and general maintenance and repair priorities in our service area. Since 2001, as we celebrate 2 decades with the City of Atlanta, our program management team, as mandated by our consent decree has supported the department to deliver projects in compliance with the original consent decree, as well as the first and second amended consent decrees. Additionally, the PMST provides other specialized technical and industry knowledge and best practices to support DWM in achieving its strategic initiatives while developing management processes and tools. Some of the basic services that the PMST provides, in addition to CIP management and administration and regulatory compliance, are financial feasibility studies, value engineering, invoice organization via eBuilder and optimization, hydraulic modeling support, project controls and delivery, and information systems management. As indicated in the resolution, the not-to-exceed amounts have been reduced each year since the initial year that the contract was authorized. In addition to providing excellent customer service, each year the team has been able to offer the same level of service at reduced cost. The primary focus during the early years of the agreement was on the consent decree program. 3 of the 6 sewer groups are 100% completed, and we are moving overall to a nearly 80% completion for the remaining. Further, due to budget restrictions in prior years, our priority focus, in addition to the consent decree and regulatory compliance, has been on operational efficiency. The department is transitioning to a smart utility using state-of-the-art information systems like SCADA, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, which is a control system architecture comprising of computers, network data communications, and graphical user interfaces for high-level supervision of machines and processes running our water and wastewater system. The contract was executed with a term of 3 years effective July 31st, 2017 to July 30th, 2022. There were 2 one-year renewal options, and both have been exercised, including a 90-day extension that brings the expiration of this agreement to October 28th, 2022. The department is in the final stages of preparing a scope of services to present to the CPO for advertising and solicitation in the upcoming days. Meanwhile, the PMST continuously performs in an above satisfactory manner, and your approval to exercise the 4th Amendment that extends this agreement to January 31st, 2023 is requested. This concludes my remarks, subject to any questions you may have.
Mr. Warren.
I'm supportive of both pieces of legislation. Just curious, where are we in the status of the new solicitation? Is it already out, or?
We are in the upcoming days, we'll be sending over a solicitation request to the CPO.
Okay. Okay, I'll follow up with him. I'm just kind of curious as to how this goes out next go around. You saying with the decreasing dollar amount per year, I'll follow up with the CPO. Thank you. I'll move approval on both.
Second by Mr. Hillis. I'll just comment for the edification of new members. I mean, the PMT's done an enormous amount of work. We would not be anywhere near where we are in-house. That said, the number of tasks is decreasing as we march along. The costs are getting lower. Are we ever going to see a day when we don't need them and some of the things like modeling and all that we do bring in-house? Or to some extent, will they have to be providing some of these services in perpetuity?
Well, we're currently mandated to have a program management team by our consent decree, but we're moving from doing some of the work that we've done with the sewer groups to being more innovative, to transferring knowledge and information so that beyond our consent decrees, we can continuously operate and be innovative and improve in our different facilities.
Yep. Commissioner Browning, I'll just add, yes, they were mandated to have the program team for oversight of our consent decrees, and their tasks have decreased over the years. They are helping us with some very essential innovative measures, such as the project management service, e-builder rollout, as well as helping us to transition to more smart utility. And so they're also helping us with figuring out path forward for biosolids and sustainable disposal for that waste byproduct. And so all of those things are still very much related to compliance, and we're appreciative of their support, and we will be readying a package to solicit a new team to support in the near future.
You know, they certainly were a very necessary, though expensive evil, especially at the beginning. The amount of money, you know, ratepayers paid to keep them busy was substantial. That said, I think one of the most under-publicized aspects of their work has been all of that value engineering they've done. I mean, they've saved the city probably hundreds of millions of dollars over the long haul.
Agreed.
All right. If there's no other questions or comments, we've had a first and a second, so let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
All right, votes unanimously approved. Thank you. Item 3 is next, and we are requested to take 3 and 7 together. If there's no objection, I'll first sound 22-0-1720, an ordinance by utilities authorizing the CFO to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $8 million to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the capital improvement, architectural, and engineering project, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. The related paper is item 7, 22R4355, resolution by utilities authorizing the mayor to execute the second amendment to each of the 6 agreements under the RFP indicated. This is for A&E work with the firms that are listed and were brought up in the quarterly report. That's a long caption. On behalf of et cetera, not to exceed amount of $8 million to provide professional A&E design work on a task order basis to the capital improvement fund projects, allocating funding an amount not to exceed $8 million, et cetera.
Thank you, Kathy Martin again. Again, you have both papers in front of you for the A&E Architectural Engineering Design and Construction Management Services on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management. The terms for these agreements are for a 3-year base, each of which are effective from various dates beginning in October of 2021, with the 2 1-year renewal options remaining that will begin in 2024. The legislative documents before you request authorization of the funding for year 2 that covers the anticipated fiscal year 23 services. The services that are provided by these 6 teams include engineering design, including the initial planning, programming, design engineering, and support during construction and startup, knowledge transfer and training for water and wastewater treatment, water distribution, wastewater collection, and watershed protection projects, and support and implementation of the department's capital improvement program, as well as other related tasks to support the department in the areas of compliance, operation and maintenance, digital transformation, and innovation. Finally, the teams may be called upon to provide related services for engineering design for projects at any stage. As mentioned briefly in part of the Commissioner's quarterly update, there have been a total of 46 issued task orders, amendments, or task orders that are pending final signature since the agreements were executed. 39 of those 46 professional services task orders are for design, construction management, or a combination of the two. All task order proposals are reviewed by a project review committee in the Office of Engineering Services and then forwarded to an executive steering committee for final approval. These approvals from the executive steering committee are dependent upon level of effort, number of labor hours to be incurred, equity in the distribution of work among the 6 teams, and other factors. Each of the 6 consultants have performed satisfactorily to date. Your approval to move forward is requested. Subject to your questions, this concludes my remarks on these 2 papers.
Thank you. First question, looking at the presentation, these A&E contractors were detailed. I'm wondering, how do we go about selecting a contractor for a certain project? Because we have them listed here, and some have had 2 issued, others have had 12 or 13. And then the amounts, while not quite as different, range from 1 to 4.1 million. So is it at their capacity, their past performance? Like what, I imagine it's not a game of paper, rock, scissors. How do we select a contractor for a certain task?
So part of what you may see, very great question, Councilmember Hillis, is that there was a little bit of a legacy turnover when we finished the last set of A&E contractors. So some of the work needed to continue with those teams that were still in place. Once that work is authorized, then what we try to do as an executive steering committee is make sure that there's equity among the 6 teams. We also make sure that the teams that are working in particular areas and have built relationships with our team members in those departments can continue to do that particular work. And then there's other work that will be associated with construction management services with some of our upcoming sewer group projects. So it is quite a balancing act. Sometimes we will send proposals out to all 6. Sometimes we will only send proposals out to a limited number, depending upon how much work they have done and how much work that they can continue to do. They are all equally qualified as they were selected to be on the team. So it is not rock, paper, scissors, but it is a little bit of method to the madness.
Thank you for that. How has the performance been of each of the 6 contractors?
The performance thus far has been satisfactory. What we have encouraged through the e-builder optimization that we discussed on the earlier project is to make sure that all the project and program managers are actually documenting the performance, at least every 6 months or at the end of the task order, whichever comes first.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? I will make a motion to approve both items. Second by Ms. Boone. If there's something else, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it, so ordered.
Thank you.
That takes us to item number 4, for which we have an amendment. This is 22-0-1750, ordinance by Mr. Winston authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate $200,000 to Live Thrive Atlanta, Inc. on behalf of Public Works to be used for the collection and processing of household hazardous waste, bulky trash, tires, and other hard-to-recycle items at the Center for Hard-to-Recycle Materials facility located at 1110 Hill Street. To authorize the mayor or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding between the City of Atlanta and Live Thrive, and as always for other purposes. And there is an amendment to add the MOU as well as 2 exhibits. It's in your packet. I'll move to bring the amendment forward. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. There's no questions about that. Let's vote on the proposed amendment.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Let's have it. Is anyone here to present the papers amended, or are we all familiar with what's to be accomplished here? Okay. Yep, go ahead.
So I'm going to move approval as amended on both, on this item. I do have a question, though, around the funding stream on this. I noticed that it's coming from both Public Works as well, or Solid Waste as well as Watershed. I wanted to confirm that because in my conversations with the CFO, I thought that with the new solid waste fee that had citywide impact type activities funded solely from the general fund, I would have thought that this would have fallen all under that.
Good afternoon, Chairman Shook, Al Wiggins, Chairman Shook and committee members, my apology. Al Wiggins, Commissioner of Public Works. Councilmember Juan, that is correct. That is a shared expense between the two departments. As you know, there is a disposal component to watershed management that Commissioner Browning may want to speak to a little bit further, but this legislation is moving forward as a shared expense.
Okay, all right. I'm fine with that if the commissioner is. I do have just a comment, and again, I've made the motion to approve as amended. I looked at the MOU. I think we still, given, I mean, as you know, I mean, commodity prices in terms of recycling are always fluctuating, and I think as our general public, and we do education around recycling efforts, both what you can do curbside and what you should take to a facility like Charm. I think there's a lot of opportunities that let's lean into along with this great partner in terms of both education opportunities, making sure that our 311 operators are well-versed and understand and have all the correct and updated information as what's accepted and not accepted fluctuates. And then finally, I've been in conversation with Councilmember Overstreet about the Greenbrier Mall recycling event. I think it might be a good time for us to kind of relook at frequency and opportunity and geography and where we might be able to stand some other things back up, pop-up type events to, again, encourage adoption and activity across the city, and then kind of, maximize our investment in terms of your team's time, both sending folks out and staffing these events, as well as Live Thrives. But I do think we're at kind of that point where it's worth just opening this conversation up and really improving and just enhancing the activity.
Agreed, Councilmember Juan. As we revisit the MOU, we'll certainly be looking at those issues, particularly the participation levels at the Greenbrier Mall event as well, and just other opportunities, as you mentioned, the fluctuation commodities as it relates to cardboard and other recyclable materials. And so this is, again, another opportunity to revise that MOU to reflect the current need.
I mean, I think everybody across the board, the city, our residents have been really pleased with the results. I think it surprised everybody, the tonnage that they've been able to move out of both our landfills as well as just the environmental dumping that's been happening. So I think while we have a chance, let's revisit it and make it even better than it has been. So again,
yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, a motion to approve is amended.
All right, motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Winston. Anything else? All right. Oh, Mr. Ellis, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just a little bit to Councilmember Juan's point, Commissioner Wiggins, if we could get, I know it was probably pre-COVID times, but there was talk and I believe action of, other facilities outside of their main Hill Street that may or may not still exist in other places. So if we could just get a list of those and like maybe a list of priorities from Charm as to, where they're looking to locate those facilities, because, being a representative of Northwest Atlanta, I have a hard time talking people into, taking a 30-minute trip to District 1 and disposing of those hard to recycle materials. So we could just look into that, please.
Yes, sir. Understood.
But let me ask it in a different way. Is a search underway for satellite locations? I know we were very close to getting one in District 7, and the corporate property owner intruded and said no, which was very disappointing. But
so
I can definitely speak.
And I'll say the search has not been done collectively. It may have been done independently by Charm. I think we do have a very unique set of circumstances. We have a good problem is that land is at a premium on the north side of town, and so finding a location that's suitable for that type of activity from a zoning standpoint is challenging as well, but I'll turn it over to Peggy to let you know what her search has revealed.
Thank you. Councilmember Hillis, we are working with the Housing Authority on Bowen Homes area to try to move that forward. You know, bottom line is exactly what the commissioner spoke to as far as property and location that we can go to on the north side of the city, the cost. The pop-up events that we were doing in Buckhead, those averaged $10,000 an event. So that's the cost of those is what's made it prohibitive. We stopped it during COVID. We had no choice but to stop it, but funding is really the issue, the amount of material that we receive at those events. So any support in that, hopefully with the MOU and working together, we can come up with some type of solution that we can offer the service throughout the city.
And if I might add, though, I would say that we need to, that's another one of the things that we should talk about, because other jurisdictions in the Atlanta metro area are talking to Live Thrive, and we want to make sure that they're not stretched so thin that we can't get a second facility if we are ready to do it. So I think Councilmember Hillis and Shook, I think to the extent that we can help with that search and encourage it within the city of Atlanta limits, we really should.
Let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Let the ayes have it. Takes us to item 5, which is 22R4336, and the caption has changed. Could you read the substituted caption?
Mr. Chair, for item number 5, 22R4336, the caption remains the same.
Oh, okay. Which is to say, a resolution by City Utilities authorizing the mayor execute the third amendment to the agreement, which is listed, emergency right-of-way maintenance with Russell Landscape LLC on behalf of Public Works, to add funding for continued right-of-way maintenance services in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. This has returned to us for further discussion by full council. Commissioner, any opening comments from you before we get into questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Juan, is that left over? All right, Mr. Hillis.
Chair, Commissioner Wiggins, this is an emergency procurement. It's been out there for over a year, and this is, I believe, the third bucket of money we're putting out at this. So what steps have your department and procurement taken to get this out to a competitive bid, both, particular to this paper and the Ed Castro landscaping, because, they handle arterials and Castro handles connectors.
So, Councilmember Hillis, is a great question, and the reason that the contract has still under an emergency contract provision falls squarely on my shoulders, and I have a few reasons that we have not sent this out for permanent contract. Although the original contract was bidded competitively through the emergency process, although that process is shorter, it was handled competitively. I wanted to make sure I started by saying that. So this month marks my 18th month with the city, and so when I came into the position, I inherited the contract during the onset of the agreement. And I quickly found that the level of maintenance that we provide on our right-of-ways needed to increase. And not only the level of maintenance, the frequency of maintenance, the level of maintenance needed to improve as well. There was, and there continues to be, some ambiguity between what department provides each service, and I am working through those issues with my fellow commissioners. We met as recently as this morning to address those issues. And so the other piece is that as we work through our cost and efficiency study, I wanted to get a better grasp on the comparison between the actual cost of our full-time employees performing the work, as well as the cost for a vendor providing the work. And so we have the unit prices down for the work that's performed through contractual agreements. We're still trying to drill down a little bit closer on the cost of what the actual cost is to provide the service to our full-time employees. That cost fluctuates, again, because as you know, Mayor Dickens, one of his first initiatives was to improve the overall appearance of our right-of-ways, just to maintain some level of consistency. And that also caused us to kind of reevaluate how we were conducting business. I anticipate that we will have a very precise number by this coming spring as I work with the Atlanta Department of Transportation, the Department of Park and Recreation, and the Department of Watershed also has a component where they provide landscape maintenance to their facilities. I would like to engage Commissioner Browning. One of the greatest advantages that we have as a city is our scale. And because of the scale of work that we're able to provide, I think the cost for mobilization fees for the vendors that we use across these departments, I think as we look at permanently bidding out work in the future, I think we leverage those benefits across the departments, and we will come up with a better contract or a proposal.
Understood. So the amount of this amendment is 1.5 million. What has been expended, not counting this 1.5 million so far, to this contractor?
So collectively, about $3.4 million.
3.4, you said?
3.4.
And this 1.5, is this for services in the future, or do we currently have a balance with Russell?
So when the request was made to add additional funds, there was additional funds remaining. Just depending on how the billing cycle fell, there may be a residual amount. Currently, we have an outstanding payment of $177,000 to Russell Landscape. Just to provide perspective, the average bill could range anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, just depending on the additional work that was requested during that billing cycle.
You've mentioned, I believe, in this committee and in some of our meetings about the quality control officers that you're bringing in. What's the status of those? What are their day-to-day going to be? Is there an understanding yet with Russell and ECL that, hey, we're bringing these people in, and if you are not in compliance, you're going to have to go back out? Do they understand that they're not going to be able to charge us more money for that, for fixing their shoddy work, or what's the status update on that?
Yes, sir. So the first two quality assurance inspectors are scheduled to onboard this coming Thursday, and they will be separated into the north and south side of town, just so that they can have an area, territory that they can effectively manage. So the goal is to ensure that all work performed by the contractors is inspected, as opposed to an audit of the work, as what we were doing before. Just because of staffing shortages, we could not inspect all of the work that was being done. I think it's also important to note that within a 24 to 48-hour time period is really the fine time to inspect the work, because, as you know, the weeds grow so quickly, it's very difficult to verify if the work was done properly. So the contractors are aware that the quality assurance inspectors are arriving. We've discussed an app that was created internally that we will use that has a vendor scorecard incorporated into the app that will allow the quality assurance inspectors to score the work that's being performed by the contractors. It also allows the contractors to submit photographs that will be geotagged for that precise location where the work is being performed, to verify that the work has been completed. So that has been working well. The app, I believe we're in our third week of using the app. So all of this is new in an effort to really ensure that the quality of work that's performed, not just by our contractors, our staff is performed consistently and in a uniform way.
And I know it was brought up in previous committee meetings about what was potentially a misunderstanding with billing with this particular contractor. I believe something about they started off charging by the mile, now they're by the hour, or vice versa. So what is the status of that, and how are they getting paid? Is it by the mile or by the hour?
So currently it's by the foot. It's approximately 55 cents per foot for mowing. There was some confusion with one of the vendors. They were performing the work on an hourly basis. Our goal has always been to ensure that the work has been a results-driven compensation model, as opposed to the amount of effort that's been exhausted to perform the work. The contractor is now aware of that expectation of the city and has agreed to bill according to that model, which is something that we will clear up. There was some ambiguity in the contract that probably provided for some confusion with that contractor. But as we go into bidding the work out permanently, we will definitely clarify that language or correct the language.
And what does that 55 cents per feet get us? Because to me, right-of-way maintenance is more than just coming through with a mower. I've seen various levels of quality. Some of it looks great. Others, think they left the trimmer at home,
Right.
and they've just come through with a mower. Sometimes there's trash that's mowed over. There are corridors that haven't been maintained or at least quality-like maintained for many years. So the sidewalks, as we went out on one of our rides, are like pig paths now that need to be trimmed out and edged. So what does that get us, and how do we move? If it doesn't get us all of those services, which I see as right-of-way maintenance, how are we going to move towards that space?
So the current contract is very clear on the extent and level of service provided. It does require that the grass to be maintained at a certain height, that the curb and gutter is clear of silt and debris, and that any debris that is in the area is collected before the mowing begins. And so there's certainly not any confusion about our expectations as it relates to maintenance on particularly the arterial roads and the collector streets is where we're using the commercial landscapers because their job is to maintain and cultivate grass and vegetation.
And then what about sidewalk maintenance? Are they supposed to blow sidewalks, edge sidewalks? Okay.
So yes, they're supposed to mow, maintain the sidewalks that are adjacent to the areas where they have where a grass strip is. I believe there is an opportunity for us to provide further clarification on maintenance of sidewalks, which we intend to do in the upcoming contract.
Coming down the home stretch, I promise. So this particular contractor handles arterials, another contractor handles connectors. You still maintain a team internally as well that does good work. How do you allocate your internal resources given these two contracts? I know you mobilized on one contract that one connector that the other contractor, ECL, was supposed to be maintaining, but wasn't. They went out and your internal team went out and did some great work. But how do you, manage all of the requests for, local streets, for things like happened on Perry Boulevard that they're supposed to maintain but aren't? The 311 request, I'm sure many requests you get from council members up here and elsewhere. How do you prioritize that?
So the local streets are handled on a complaint basis only. We would love to be able to go out and maintain every segment of right-of-way throughout the city, but we have to use the finite resources that we have according to the priorities that are placed before us. So therefore, we use our full-time staff members to maintain the local roads, and should we have an issue with an all-cycle request for areas that fall under state right-of-way, or if we need to assist our other departments, such as the Department of Parks and Recreation or ADOT on one-off requests, we utilize our full-time employees for that. I will also say that in defense of Ed Castro Landscaping, the issue with Perry Street, they were following the street guide, and so they were confused about, they were actually doing the work that they were asked to do, and the update of the street guide will correct that one particular issue that we had with Ed Castro.
And you touched on it. You said you had a meeting this morning about, the responsibilities of Bpw of Dot Parks. I've experienced that issue. Lots of finger pointing. Generally trees are handled by parks in the city right away, but they're under 6 inches. Well, DPW doesn't carry on chainsaws. I don't believe. So when do we expect to get to some level of understanding and agreement between departments as to what each is going to handle?
Councilmember Hillis, that's a great point. And what we agreed to, the meeting with Interim Commissioner Bomar and Commissioner Cutler, is that if we have to go out and get a ruler or some instrument to determine who does the work, we should just complete the work on our own. We have an agreement that should we have an issue with staffing shortages or equipment failure, that we will step in and address the issue. But our first step is to look at the services that we provide and to clearly outline the services that are provided by each department, so it will allow the staff to work autonomously and the council member aides to know who to reach out to. But we have made the agreement to not shuffle a customer or an elected official to the other department. We will handle those issues internally. And so along with the quality assurance inspectors, we have hired additional customer service representatives to address these particular issues, and more importantly, to make sure that the issues are triaged correctly. So that's no longer an issue per our discussion earlier today.
That comes up, not being nitpicky, but these are public safety issues, as you've seen on tours with me. This brush, trees are obstructing street signs, even traffic signals, things like that. So looking forward to working on this and having a better, I know we're about to go into winter here and outside of growing season, but hopefully that'll give us some time to get all this straightened out, and we'll have more beautiful corridors in the city come next spring. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Wiggins, I love my community. I love my community. I was born and raised in Adamsville. And when I ride up and down ML King Jr. Drive, and I look to the left and I look to the right, and I look in the middle by the skating rink, and it looks bad. It looks bad. I don't believe your staff is happy with these contractors. I really don't. You have a great team. They are responsive. They are marvelous. They are good people. And when I look at them and they are stressed out over contractors, that bothers me. How many times have we done this emergency contract for the public, for my neighbors that are listening? How many times have we done this contract on an emergency basis?
So this is the second extension that I am aware of, possibly the third. I am certain that this is the second. Again, I'm operating off of limited institutional knowledge, being that this is my 18th month.
You've been here a year and a half?
Yes, ma'am. And so this is the second extension of that agreement. But Councilmember Boone, I understand and share your frustration. And that is really the primary reason that we've hired the quality insurance inspectors, to ensure.
But that bothers me, that we have to hire people to check behind the contractors. They should be hiring people.
So I believe that they do have quality assurance inspectors on their team, but their standard obviously has not met our standard. So therefore, we've hired a team of folks to ensure that we receive the services that we pay for. I agree that we should not have to do that, much like we should not have to hire code enforcement officers to regulate our city codes, but it's just a necessary step in the process. And I've heard
Is
from-
anyone here from Russell Landscaping?
no,
Is anyone here?
I don't believe so.
They know your concerns.
They're aware. They're aware, and they have agreed to increase the level of maintenance. And I have seen them improve over the last 2 weeks, and adding additional staff members to ensure that they meet our expectations as well. But again, we want to ensure that our quality assurance inspectors maintain that level of consistency through the inspection process.
Is the COO and Deputy COO aware of your frustration?
So I've had a discussion with the Deputy COO about the level of maintenance with the contractors. And I can say that each time that we have spoken with them about the level of maintenance, they have improved and stepped up. But we want to make sure that that level of consistency is maintained through the inspection process and through the vendor scorecard as well.
So let me just say that landscaping, cleanliness, delittering, a clean environment matters. That is important. It's important. Here we are, we're being asked to give another $1,500,000 to Russell Landscaping. And then when we ride around our communities, it doesn't look well. It doesn't look well. I am very, 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 very unhappy with this. I am so unhappy with this.
All right, thank you. Obviously, our concerns are they're semi-permanent, or they are permanent until they get resolved. I think you can obviously expect that this committee and other council members will take a real keen interest in looking for better project management. I'm not going to recycle all of the things I was crabby about last time, none of which have been ameliorated. So then on the other hand, what the committee has to decide is, are we going to get this work done? We're already 2 weeks behind. Or we can kill this and force the department to take a different course. Mr. Hillis.
Yeah, so know the importance of the work, and like you said, you've had conversations with Russell. So what has been their feedback? Are they committed to improving the process, to actually fulfilling what we've tasked them with? Because, you know, that one section, Merida Boulevard, which actually in Councilmember Amos's district, who's in the audience, but take that route to work, and it's still, I mean, it's not an F- anymore, but it might be a D or a D+. As to what the way it looks, and they've been there 2 or 3 times now. So what has their feedback been? Do they know they have a problem that they need to address, or?
So Russell has been very attentive to our request, to the extent that they have asked that we increase the joint visits to inspect the work that's being performed, to ensure that their work meets our expectations. And I would like to say is that we're going into a dormant season, and even with the work that has not been performed satisfactorily, we have to be able to document each occurrence to establish a trend. And without quality insurance inspectors, it's just a random phone call. So we really need to be able to provide a level of feedback that has details, has location, and has photographs to be able to explain what level what level of work needs to be performed and how they have fallen short.
To that point, and given, I believe you stated your quality assurance people are going to start, you said the 29th, I believe, the last time you stated?
Yes, sir, this coming
At least
Thursday.
2 of them. I was complimenting Commissioner Browning on her quality metrics. So that is a quality metric I'd like to see on your next quarterly report. As was mentioned, we're going into the dormant season, and to that point, what are they going to be? Are they still going to continue to work for the city? Are they going to, more thoroughly address litter and cutting back, brush, or what are they going to do during the winter?
So they will help with controlling some of the invasive species. The frequency of work does reduce during the dormant season, but they will focus on areas, special projects that we assign to them, such as cleaning out curb and gutters and areas such as places that you've taken me throughout your district where the overgrowth has grown into the roadway. And so it's more project-based during the dormant season than a routine mowing schedule or maintenance schedule.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think the thing and again, I'm new, so this is my first year, but I think it's frustrating, and especially when Councilmember Boone speaks up about something like this and everyone else, and we're going to begrudgingly, I see no reason for them to improve. We continue giving them money, they continue doing inadequate work. Is there other options than being forced to vote this through? To begrudgingly vote this through, because I don't see any reason why they would improve. Fair enough. Okay.
Just the fact that you have to use your own funding to hire quality inspectors is reason enough for us to have pause on this contract. Typically, the council doesn't send back papers from the floor back to a committee. That means that we all looked at this like this is something that we should look at again. I'm still not with this. Do we have to do this? Do you have to do this right now?
So I'm concerned that the level of maintenance and our ability to continue with the established maintenance schedule will fall behind. And Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Boone, I do understand, and I hear your frustration, and I know that you, Councilmember Boone, you have called and we have ridden your area several times because you're so dialed in on what goes on in your district. But I will say that as a department head, I would like the ability to have our quality assurance inspectors to document the work, right? Because other than providing documentation, from a standpoint of engaging the contractors, I would like to have a written report to show where they need to improve. And if we continue with this model and we outsource the work, we need to be able to provide the same level of feedback to another contractor. We have about 1,300 centerline miles of right-of-way, and so we maintain both sides of the road. That's about 2,600 miles of right-of-way. It's a huge undertaking to maintain those areas, and so we have to have these performance metrics in place that we've had before, but they have not been as clearly defined as they should be. But before we decide to discontinue the agreement with the current two providers, I would prefer that we would be able to clearly articulate where they have fallen short as opposed to.
Is there an opportunity for your department to grow after the end of this contract, to grow and actually take under this assignment yourself? Because I feel like if you're managing it so closely, it's almost like we're doing the work. So is there an opportunity for your department to grow, where we keep this in-house and we build more strong union, middle-class families right here in the city of Atlanta by building your department?
So another great question, Councilmember Lewis. There are some things that we have done behind the scenes to increase our bandwidth. We have changed the configuration of vehicles that we use to provide landscape services. We've purchased vehicles that do not require CDL to reduce the burden of recruiting drivers that drive the heavy equipment that's being currently used for landscape services. We expect the delivery of that equipment, although we ordered it last year. We expect the initial delivery of that equipment to occur within the next month or two. And so that will help us to increase our bandwidth. But that was the primary reason that we initially began using these emergency contracts, because we were having a difficult time. Not only recruiting staff, we were having a difficult time with maintaining some level of consistency, because we had sporadic COVID outbreaks that we really weren't able to anticipate the size crews that we would be able to deploy to perform the work. So the emergency contracts were definitely needed during that time. I would say currently we're using the emergency contracts to really draw a comparison on how can we return the best value to our citizens. And again, we have narrowed down the unit price through the use of contractors. We're still trying to get a closer estimate of what it costs to utilize our full-time employees, and really particularly the best place to deploy our staff. So to answer your question, we are putting processes in place to increase our staffing and our bandwidth to be able to do the work. And I anticipate that the level of efficiency will significantly improve. One, just by communicating with the newly installed Parks Commissioner and the interim ADOT Commissioner. If we combine forces in certain areas, we believe that we could provide the services in a much more efficient manner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, I share all the concerns as my colleagues, and in many ways, you mentioned that the changing season is going to be somewhat helpful. Russell's also kind of getting thrown a bone because of that. But I'm also concerned about the work that needs to be done on a project base. You've got fall coming in, you've got leaves all over the city of Atlanta. What is the strain of that going to be on, our stormwater management? Now it doesn't just become a Department of Public Works problem. It becomes a wastewater management problem now, for the city of Atlanta if we don't take care of this, and it puts us in a larger crisis. So to that point, knowing of the shortfalls and the shortages that we have from a personnel in your department, I begrudgingly second the motion by Councilmember Wan, because looking at the potential, problems that this may cause if we don't continue to handle the projects that are about to happen in the dormant season. So that's where I am with this. Thank you.
I'm going to defer to Councilmember Wan first.
In advance of Mr. Hills' comments, and I appreciate that, Mr. Winston, but I'm going to withdraw my motion. I believe Mr. Hills is going to put forward a substitute, a different motion that's better.
So again, as has been said by my colleagues, I know this work is vital. We have at least, depending on what the weather does, another month or two of growing season. This needs to be addressed. However, so we can get reports from your QA folks that you're bringing on within the next month or two. They start in 2 days, so within the next month or two, get us a quality report as to how Russell and Ed Castro have improved. And so in the sense of that, I'm reluctantly going to support this, but I'm only going to support it if we can cut it in half. So I'm going to make an amendment that we reduce the amount to $750,000. So I'll make that motion to amend, and then that you can come back with a report before you come back requesting more money to allot either contractor.
Motion's been made and seconded by Ms. Bakhtiari. Commissioner, your response?
No, well received, and we will definitely have a comprehensive report on the progress of both of our contractors. I believe that this is a solvable issue, but first I want to make sure as a commissioner that we've provided you with the necessary documents to make a prudent decision, and I feel like at this point we have not been able to to give you that information in a written format.
And just point of clarity, I know Councilmember Winston spoke about, the fall on the leaves. And those need to be cleared from the right of way and the curbs and stuff too, but the extra collection efforts, that's a separate contract, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Councilmember Hillis, what was that last thing you said?
The extra collection efforts of the leaf bags, lawn refuse bags are separate contracts.
Okay. So, well, Commissioner, you know I'm a big fan. And I am upset that this falls to you to present to us. I mean, it's part of your job. I understand that as Commissioner. But I support Councilmember Hillis's motion. Obviously, I seconded it. But because of the fact that you're having to hire quality assurance officers to ensure, as we're paying them premium price to do this job, but also paying to clean up after them is absolutely ludicrous. But also we need to move forward with this so that the additional stress doesn't fall upon you and your department. So I understand that. However, when we have our next convened meeting to discuss this again, I would kindly request that both contractors have representatives here to take account and to have responsibility to stand beside you as you make these presentations. Because putting it upon you for the failure of their work and not being here is also feels like a slap in the face. So we would, I think we would all greatly appreciate it if both of them are present at the next time that this comes up for discussion. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Exactly what I was about to say, what Councilmember Bakhtiari said. And another thing, can you make sure that you let them know that the council is not happy, the end user is not happy, and this is a public-private partnership. So the public wants to have a conversation with them about their part of the partnership, which is why I hope this gives you some leverage as we move forward, because we're not just we're looking at the work, and I think we're getting calls that we almost have to micromanage this situation. You've already started micromanaging it by hiring these quality, creating this new position. And so we need them to come in and stand next to you, because of this public-private partnership. We can let them know we aren't happy when we get off the exit at our highways.
Understood.
Let's vote on the amendment.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the amendment carries.
Second.
That motion by Juan, second by Hillis to approve as amended. If there's nothing else, let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Motion carries 5 with 2 nays. All right, that takes us to item 11. This is waiting for the iPro to catch up. 22-0-1685, ordinance by utilities authorizing the CFO to amend the FY 2023 wastewater renewal fund budget in the amount of $4,212,440, transfer funds from watershed reserve for appropriations and ed funds to the North Fork Storage Tank and Pump Station project. And for the purposes, we needed the iPro, which has now come before us. Commissioner, you have any remarks before we get to the iPro?
Good morning, Chairman Shook, City Utility Committee members, Makita Browning. Purpose of this legislation is to add additional funds for the North Fork Storage Tank and Pump Station project in the amount requested. Again, this is a consent decree and capacity relief project that will continue efforts to upgrade the city's trunks and outfall sewers pursuant to our FACD. The responsive bid received was for roughly $145 million, which is roughly 3% above the engineer's estimate of $141 million, which we found to be within a reasonable tolerance. The project will be funded utilizing the WIFIA, which is the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act That's available through EPA, Master Bond Agreement Appropriations, and iPro was attached. Subject to your questions.
Yes. Motion made and seconded to attach the iPro. If there's nothing else on that, let's open that vote.
Mr. Chair, the iPro is actually attached to the companion paper for item number 14. No, item 11 does not require an iPro, and they have to be voted on separately.
Okay. All right, second.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, 12. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and take 14. 22R4268, resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for the RFP indicated North Fork Patriot Creek Storage Tank and Pump Station with Ruby Collins Inc. on behalf of Watershed for a term to commence at the date of a notice to proceed is issued for a period of 1,034 calendar days for substantial completion, 1,095 calendar days for final completion, in an amount not to exceed $145,212,440. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the accounts indicated. All right, there's been a motion made and second to amend in the iPro. I do have some questions about the iPro. There were some interesting findings I'd like to hear about. DOP issued 4 addenda for the solicitation to revise the drawings and make other modifications, as well as respond to 131 questions. And the DOP response was no response required. I wouldn't mind getting a better feel for what that means. Do we have procurement here?
Shannon Manigault, Office of the Inspector General. The designation of no response required was from iPro, not from the Department of Procurement. So it was that, based on this finding, we didn't require a response from the Department of Procurement.
Okay. So would that also obtain with the findings regarding a conflict of interest note and a section entitled evaluation?
That's correct. And I'm happy to provide an explanation for that behind the scenes or now if you require.
Well, do any of my other colleagues have questions about the iPro? No. All right. Motion's been made and second to amend in the iPro. So let's open that.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. Ended by Juan. Shook seconds. Open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right. The ayes have it. So ordered. That takes us to Mr. Amos has remained awake. Apologize for but you got a good education in the city utilities. 22-0-1714, this paper of Mr. Byron's that we held after a lot of discussion to amend the Atlanta City Code sections as listed riparian buffer encroachments to allow the technical panel to approve encroachments for certain multifamily residential development to make drafting amendments and for other purposes. Commissioner.
We are kindly requesting that this paper be held one more cycle. We have a substitute that will be forthcoming, and we'll be prepared to speak to it at the next.
The author is nodding his assent. Motion to hold by Bakhtiari, which is second by Hillis, so let's open the vote on the motion to hold.
Mr. Chair, we do not have to hold it.
Oh, it's already held.
It's already on the held agenda. The sponsor requested that it be removed, but it can just remain on the held agenda.
Okay, thank you. Item 13, 22R 4252. This is a resolution by Mr. Hillis requesting the mayor's designee to evaluate and update the list of city arterial streets, city connector streets, and state route streets within the City of Atlanta Public Right-of-Way Manual to request the Atlanta Department of Transportation and the Department of Public Works coordinate these efforts, which include updating street names, limits of streets, mileage of streets, and street classifications that may need to occur due to growth and increased traffic that has occurred since the last update, to request this occur by December 31 of this year, and to request Public Works utilize the updated list in regards to right-of-way maintenance scheduling beginning January of next year. And for other purposes, Mr. Hillis.
Yeah, so they have drafted a substitute that everyone's been provided. So basically what this seeks to do is keep this paper that is before us strictly to updating the street names and the limits and the mileage of our current arterials and connectors. And then it's my understanding that GDOT actually puts out a list of those such streets. However, much to the names and limits of the streets, this list has not been updated since I was 1 year old in 1986. So this will update the list as far as the names of the streets and the mileage and the limits. And then there'll be another paper forthcoming requesting that the city update the list of arterials and connectors in regards to what is on it. So I'll make a motion to bring that substitute forward.
Motion has been made and second to bring forward the substitute. Seeing no questions or comments, let's open the vote, please.
Mr. Chair, please repeat the seconder. The vote is open.
I'll have to say I can speak.
Please vote. Councilmember Lewis. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. So the caption's the same, correct?
No.
There were minor changes, wording changes.
Minor changes to the caption. Well, let me read the substituted caption then. Resolution by Hillis is substituted by City Utilities, requesting the mayor as designee to evaluate and update the list of city arterial streets, Appendix A, city connector streets, Appendix B, and right-of-way streets, Appendix C, within the City of Atlanta Public Right-of-Way Manual to request the Department of Transportation of Atlanta and the Department of Public Works coordinate these efforts, which include updating street names, updating limits of streets, and updating mileage of streets that may need to occur due to changes that have occurred since the last update, to request this occur by December 31 of this year, and to request the Department of Public Works utilize the updated list in regards to right-of-way maintenance scheduling beginning in the upcoming January and for other purposes.
Second.
Motions to approve on substitute by Juan, second by Hillis. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Favorable, the ayes have it. I believe just like that, just that fast, we've concluded our business.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Any remarks, questions, comments, observations, one-liners? Seeing none, we're adjourned.